Ever scroll past some article about Bitcoin and just think,
Yeah.
should have gotten in on that sooner?
Happens to the best of us, right?
Totally. And like everyone's got an opinion on it these days, right? Everyone and their grandma's suddenly a crypto expert.
Uh-huh. That seems that way.
But today we're doing a deep dive on someone who actually might be onto something, Fred Krueger. He's got some seriously bold predictions about Bitcoin. So
Okay.
we're going to break down why Krueger thinks Bitcoin is far from over and see if you agree by the end of this.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
So Krueger points out something kind of interesting. Seasoned investors. They seem to be the most hesitant about Bitcoin. You'd think they'd be all over it.
It's almost like they're too experienced, right? They've seen all the fads come and go. They've made their millions and maybe lost a few along the way.
Exactly. They're not easily swayed by hype. But Krueger argues their experience might actually be holding them back this time.
I can see that Bitcoin's been around for what feels like forever now. It's had its 15 minutes of fame and then some. I bet for those seasoned investors, it just feels,
Like old news.
yeah, like yesterday's lottery ticket.
Yeah.
You missed the boat and it's already sailed.
Totally.
Yeah.
But Krueger says, hold on a second. He argues that Bitcoin has a history of seeming too expensive right before it takes off.
Interesting.
And he even uses this idea of fractal patterns in Bitcoin's price history to back it up.
Okay, now those are some big words.
I know, right? When I first read fractal patterns, I think my brain went offline for a minute.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I can imagine.
So for our listeners who aren't, math whizzes, can you break that down for us?
Sure thing. So imagine back in 2011, Bitcoin went from like $1 to over 30 bucks. Then a couple years later, boom and bust again. This time it went from around 100 to over 1,000 before crashing back down.
Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Right. Each peak was higher than the last. And even though it crashed each time, it never went lower than the previous cycle's starting point.
So it's like this staircase going up, even with the dips in between.
Exactly. That's the fractal pattern Kruger's talking about. It's like
Yeah.
this up and down dance, but each time it goes higher.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So he's basically saying, even if you think you missed out on the first few rounds, there might be more to come?
That's the gist of it. He's
Right.
saying don't focus on the current price. Look at the bigger picture.
Okay, so that's the fractal part. But what else is making him so optimistic about Bitcoin? Is he just like a super fan or something?
Well, he does make some pretty big claims.
Like what?
Like Bitcoin reaching $500,000 big.
Whoa.
Okay.
Okay, that's a lot of zeros.
Right. But he connects this back to some pretty significant stuff happening in the economy, like interest rates. He thinks they're going to plummet.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. Tell me more. Okay, so interest rates. Not exactly the most, exciting topic. How do those play into all of this?
Well, think of it this way. When interest rates are high, it's like a safe bet. You put your money in the bank and you get a little something back. Not a huge return, but pretty reliable, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
But what happens when those rates go down? I mean, way down.
I guess suddenly that safe bet isn't looking so hot.
Exactly. And investors, they're always on the lookout for the next big thing. So when those safe bets start to look well, kind of boring.
They turn to riskier assets, like Bitcoin.
Bingo Kruger thinks this is where things get really interesting. He predicts that by 2025, interest rates could be below 3%. That's practically zero.
Wow. Okay. And he thinks this could push Bitcoin to like, what, $200,000?
He sees it as this perfect storm. Low interest rates, tons of investors looking for high returns. Everyone jumps on the Bitcoin bandwagon.
$200,000 by 2025. That just seems, I don't know, kind of hard to believe. Is that even possible?
To be honest, it's tough to say crypto is notoriously unpredictable.
Yeah.
There are so many factors at play. But Kruger's scenario isn't totally out there. If everything goes right, interest rates fall, people keep pouring money into Bitcoin, yeah, we could see some crazy price action.
So it's not a sure thing, but it's not impossible either.
Exactly. It's all about potential. And Kruger, he sees a lot of it in Bitcoin. In fact, he even compares it to Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, hold on. What does Bitcoin have to do with soda?
It's not about the actual product. It's about market dominance. You see Coca-Cola, it's everywhere, right?
Yeah, you can find it in like every country.
Exactly. It's the biggest name in the game. Yeah. And Kruger, he thinks Bitcoin is on its way to becoming the Coca-Cola of cryptocurrency.
Okay, so like everyone will choose Bitcoin over all the other options, even if there are other good ones out there.
Kind of like how people still choose Coke, even though there are tons of other colas out there.
Because it's the most well-known, the OG.
Exactly. It's about network effects.
Yeah.
The more people use something, the more valuable it becomes. The more valuable it becomes, the more people use it. It's a cycle.
And Bitcoin's already got a huge head start.
Huge. And that's what makes Kruger think it will be the one to come out on top. He thinks it will be the dominant player in the crypto space.
So does that mean like all the other cryptos are doomed? What about Ethereum Dogecoin? All
Hold on now. It's not quite that simple. Just because Bitcoin might become the biggest name doesn't mean there's no room for anyone else.
Okay, so it's not game over for every other cryptocurrency out there.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Think about it. The crypto world is still so new. There's room for innovation. Different cryptocurrencies serve different purposes. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Oh, there's still a chance we'll be sipping on a crypto cola and a Bitcoin brew in the future.
Maybe.
Right.
Maybe not. But the point is, it's probably too early to declare any winners or losers in the crypto game. It's still anyone's game.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Fractals, interest rates. Bitcoin is the next Coca-Cola. What's the takeaway for our listener at home who maybe just tuned in and is wondering what's the deal with this Bitcoin thing?
Honestly, I think what's most interesting about Kruger isn't whether he's right or wrong about the specifics. I mean, predicting the future is always tough.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
Exactly. But Kruger's real message is, don't be afraid to miss out. It's so easy to look back and say, oh, I should have bought Apple stock when it was $2, or why didn't I buy Bitcoin back in the day?
Major FOMO.
Right. But the truth is, there's always something new on the horizon. You can't get caught up in what you should have done.
It's like that saying, right? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Exactly. Kruger's saying, don't let fear hold you back. Do your research, understand the risks, and then, if it feels right, take the leap.
And it's not just about the money either, right? If even half of what Kruger says is true, if Bitcoin really becomes this global force...
You would change everything.
Right. Imagine a world where you're buying your coffee with Bitcoin or using it to send money across the world in seconds.
It challenges everything we thought we knew about money and value. It's exciting and a little bit scary at the same time.
For sure. And that's why we're talking about it, because whether you're a Bitcoin expert or just hearing about it for the first time, these are conversations we need to be having.
That was about understanding the future and deciding what role we want to play in it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us today. And for everyone listening, keep asking those tough questions, keep exploring this new world, and until next time, happy investing.